Homes live here with Bayut. Find real and authentic properties using TrueCheck. Download the app or visit Bayut.com.
Right, from planes to trains, there has been a lot of talk about what the Metro's upcoming Blue Line could mean for property prices. So what does history teach us? We're very pleased to be joined by Fibha Ahmed, Vice President of Sales at Bizzle and Bayut. Fibha, it's lovely to see you. Good morning.
Same here, Brandy. Good morning.
And I appreciate the themed dressing, blue line, blue suit.
Thought I'd match your blue shirt.
There we go. Everyone got the memo. Remind me very quickly where the Blue Line, when it is built, will run. What's it going to connect?
So a Blue Line was announced, let's say, towards the end of 2023. And the major areas that it's going to connect is going to be Murdiv, Warka, International City, Phase 1, 2, Warsaw. Then you move into DSO, Ras Al Khor, Academic City, and of course the Creek Harbour.
And presumably it connects a lot of communities that haven't even been built yet.
Well, I would say that these communities have a certain niche. Very obviously, you can segment them into family-friendly areas, which is your Murdiv and Warka. Very heavily saturated for rental market, very popular as well, especially for the villa communities. Then you have International City, which makes the headlines every time for the best ROI and very, very investor friendly. So I would say these areas have been on the map and they have actually seen very decent growth if I just compare it to last year. These areas are ready. There is a lot more to build.
Okay. What did we see happen to property prices around Route 2020 when it was launched back a couple of years ago?
Interestingly, so when we looked at the numbers, we saw some very, very healthy trends. And for comparison, we looked at what actually happened to the prices right after the route got functional, let's say in the beginning of 2022. Okay. The three areas that stood out were for John, Dubai South, and then you also have a lot of activity in DIP. And what has happened in these areas is segmented market. Rental prices have gone up, if I compare it to today, about 34% on average. And there has been 18% more rental transactions in these areas. But what really stood out is the activity in the off-plan segment, where you have 2x to 3x more transactions. So, yes, while the current properties claimed a very high price tag, I would say what really stood out is the interest of the developers to go further out in town and build in these areas. Dubai South has been in the news for the last 2-3 years, not only for the Expo South site, but also for all the other developments that are coming there. So price has appreciated, more rental activity, lots of interest on the off-plan side.
You've mentioned what happened with the spike in rents, the uptick in rents. What about in terms of the valuations of the properties themselves?
So for ready properties, one very interesting stat that we have is Discovery Garden's existing properties. They scored a really high price appreciation. And if you just segment all the existing properties today in all these areas, you would see about, on an average, 80 to 85% increase in prices. Go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of that is going to be the general market, regardless of the metro, though, no?
I would say that Metro has added to the price appreciation capacity of these areas. Discovery Garden has always been known as an affordable area where people would look at about 400, 500K mark, get a one bed, easy access to the Metro, and then you come into the city. I would say that Metro's introduction and then operation, a successful operation, just continues to add more opportunity for more properties to be built in those areas.
What's the radius for an area to be considered convenient for a metro? How big's that circle?
I would say you start with 5-minute walk to the metro station. That's where you see the highest price appreciation for property as well as rental market. You go further down, you go 10, 15 minutes. You can easily look up to 30, 35% price appreciation, not only on the sales side, but also on the rental side. That's what we've seen historically. Now, mind you, the Blue Line already is in highly, with a high density area, or the areas that it covers, there's a lot of people that live there. So I would say, I'd expect personally, if you ask me, for this to push the mark and probably reach about 40% price appreciation, given that these areas are very, very popular, not only because of the ticket size, but also how central they are, connecting to Dubai International Airport, downtown, easy access, and you cut the commute time by 10 to 15 minutes.
What does it mean for ROI for investors? I mean, yes, they can charge higher rent closer to a metro, but presumably then they're also paying more to buy the property. Does it cancel out?
The trick is that you get into the market earlier on. So the stats that I shared for Route 2020 are 3 years into this being functional. Yeah. So now if you are looking, let's say the expected timeline for Blue Line to be in operation is 2029, I would suggest that if you get into the market today, you can easily look up for a very high price appreciation, and by the time the metro is up and running, the off-plan properties are handed over, you can look at a very healthy ROI, which could be well in the high range, which we see currently.
Okay, and that was going to be my question. At what point in the cycle between, announcement, work starting and trains actually running, do we tend to see the appreciation? Do landlords start charging more a year before, knowing that those tenants are still going to be there? How does it work?
Historically, what we've seen is that as soon as the metro is operational, the 6 to 12 months post that is when you see the real popularity of the area kind of solidify itself. And renters are seeing that they have to pay a higher price because people can now put on a piece of paper how much does it actually save them in terms of time for commute, etc. So I would say 6 months into 12 months, as soon as the stations are operational, is then when you start to see the prices really take an upward trajectory.
We had a message in from someone suggesting that those in a position to buy a home might be more likely to own a car and less likely to use the metro. Does it have more of an uplift on apartments rather than villas, affordable housing rather than luxury housing? What do you see?
I'd say definitely for the apartments, and these areas that we are going to see that are going to get connected by Blue Line are mostly apartment heavy, DSO, International City. These areas are where people will prefer to kind of take the metro rather than bringing a car into downtown. I mean, try going to downtown on a weekday after 6 p.m. or even on the weekend. So like we earlier said on the show, that people will gradually shift towards where they're traveling, where they're going, and maybe there would be some shift in terms of where you take the metro versus where you take the car.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, talking about what the Metro's Blue Line could mean for property prices. Fibha Ahmed, Vice President of Sales at Dubizzle and Bayut. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.